Well, what's going on, guys? Welcome back to LOI Fan TV. I hope you're all keeping very, very well. This is a video that I've been looking to do for the last little while. It's been kind of one that's been kind of playing in the background for the last couple of weeks. It's been, of course, rumored that Hull City owner Acun Ilıcalı has been linked with, of course, investing or taking ownership of Shelbourne Football Club. Of course, this is a massive, massive story, and it's not that it's gone quiet as the last little week or so, but of course, there's so many details and things to kind of figure out behind the scenes from both sides as well. So it's a really, really interesting one, and it could be a kind of a slow burner, one we don't see come to fruition for a little while. But really, really interesting to kind of keep an eye on and see how it's going to transpire in the next couple of months. I'm going to be kind of speaking in this video about the pros and cons of it from a Shelbourne perspective, but I'll be amiss to say, obviously researching this video, that I did come across a video by a Hull City supporter, old Grandpa Joe. He gave a Hull City fan perspective. I'll leave a link to that video down in the description down below. It's a really, really good video. I'd highly, highly recommend you go check it out. Hull City, of course, a club in the Championship. They are in 16th position, so kind of a mid-table pretty much season for them in the Championship this year. And just to kind of tip through a few things that old Grandpa Joe did say in his video about Acun Ilıcalı. Apologies if I'm mispronouncing that. I tried to get it right, but it could be way off the mark, but we'll see. So apologies if so. But just a couple of things I took from the video. Obviously, I'm only taking a couple of little pointers, so make sure to go check it out. Really, really good video where he kind of looks at how the partnership between the two clubs could transpire. But yeah, obviously, if he gave it a bit of a background to the owner. He is a massive football fan, Fenerbahce fan. Of course, he is a Turkish native. He did buy Hull City in 2022, and possibly concerningly for Shales, maybe not so. He did overturn the club completely, bringing in 20 new players. He got rid of the manager that was there at the time, brought in his own manager. But one thing that kind of came through in the video is that he does put the fans first. And when he first came into the club, he made tickets for the rest of the games. I think he took over late 2022 season. He made all the tickets for the games £2 in. So obviously financially it doesn't look like he's in a terrible position, which is a good thing. But of course it looks like he does care about the supporters as well, which is brilliant. Obviously with the new Brexit rules coming in as well, this does make the deal potentially more appealing for Acun. He has spoken previously about his want to purchase a second club across Europe. And of course that helps Hull City in terms of actually investing in EU talent. They can potentially keep them at Shells, and then when they turn 18, 19, 20, if they're good enough, they can come over to Hull City then, which is obviously there's pros and cons to that from a Shell's point of view, but of course it is something for that Hull City supporters will be really, really happy with, and it's a good step for them in terms of their long-term future and their long-term planning. One thing that came across in the video is that there is no need to be worried or skeptical about his intentions. It does look like if he did take over the club that he would probably put the club's best interests at heart, but obviously it is a little bit of a weird one in terms of where his priorities would lie, so to speak. It's no secret that Shelbourne have been looking for external investment for a good while now. Of course, there was rumours towards the end of last year that there was going to be a deal with the Southampton ownership group, but that obviously never came about in the end, which is a big shame for Duff as well in terms of his planning for this season. He maybe didn't get the budget he would have liked. Obviously, he's spoken at length about how his budget compares to the top teams in the league. Maybe Shamrock Rovers and Derry City having nearly 4 times the budget to spend on players. But let's discuss some pros and cons of the deal for Shelbourne. Of course, in terms of the pros category, the club would be in a very, very stable financial position. And there's a lot to be said for that. We've seen countless amount of times over the years Irish clubs have gone into financial difficulty and financial issues and even gone into liquidation. Of course, we've seen Shells in the past just about survive massive, massive financial problems, and obviously have come back now, but they were in the first division, the second tier of Irish football for years. And to have that financial stability there, to be able to compete in the Premier Division with no kind of worries about wages being paid and having budgets there, it is a huge, huge bonus. Then, of course, there is the influx of young talent. Of course, if the deal was to go ahead, young players that are in Hull City's under 21 group, and maybe players that are on the kind of fringes of the first team, maybe not getting into the side. The Shelbourne route might be a good route to go down for them to get some first team experience. We've seen a lot of players coming over to England for first team experience on loans and gone back to England and done very well. We've seen players coming from the League of Ireland as a starting point and going over to the Championship and doing very well as well. And then, of course, Hull will probably have an extensive scouting pool across Europe as well, where they'd be looking for players, young players across Europe, and they'd be looking to bring them in. And obviously having having that gateway then to the Hull City first team, buying them for Shells, developing them at Shells, and then maybe looking towards going across the pond then in their early 20s or whatever it may be. It could be a really beneficial thing for Shells as well. And then, of course, Acun and Ilıcalı could see Shelbourne as a genuine route into European football, and that could excite him as well. Of course, it's not going to be an easy feat taking Hull City to the Premier League, let alone qualifying for European competition. Obviously, you have to get a top 6, top 7 placed position for that, or win a cup or whatever. So a bit of a stretch for Hull City in the short term, even in the long term as well. It's a very, very difficult thing to achieve. Whereas with Shells, you might see it's an exciting opportunity to kind of pursue a European dream, a European tour. He might love that idea. And obviously in the League of Ireland, Shelbourne got to the cup final last year. Obviously they did lose that, but obviously if they had won that, they would have secured European football for this season. Obviously it's a 3rd or 4th place finish in a 10-team league. That's nowhere near as competitive as the Championship or the Premier League, in terms of the players and budgets, etc. So it's definitely an easier task to get this Shelbourne side into European football, and that could genuinely excite him, and it could be something that he looks at and invests in a lot, and tries to maybe make group stages competitions, because the return on investment there would be quite high. Then of course there is the cons as well, and it will be greeted with a lot of skepticism as well if he is to take over the club. Will Shelbourne just turn into nothing more than a feeder club for Hull? It'll be down his list of priorities. He won't care too much about it. It's kind of over there, used as a tool to kind of get some players over at times, and it doesn't really care about the club and stuff like that. And that'll definitely need to be looked at when the talks are taking place over this takeover. And then, as I mentioned earlier in the video, we did see that he came into Hull City and pretty much instantly got rid of the manager. And if he was to do that with Damien Duff, such a high profile figure in Ireland, an Irish legend, a Shelbourne FC legend now, he's adored by the fans. And if he was to come in and the first thing he does is get rid of him to bring in his own man, it would not go down well at all. And we have seen already that there has been a little bit of tension there with Damien Duff so far about this. Shelbourne are the first Irish League club that Acun Ilıcalı has been looking at. There's a heavily rumoured that he was looking to invest in Dundalk, and this was actually confirmed by Liam Rose Sr., who did say that if Hull City were to become the parent club to another side, that the two teams would look to utilise a similar playing style, which is really, really interesting. And it didn't necessarily go down well with Damien Duff, who said that the way I see football is a manager and a staff who work at a football club mould a team and build their own style of play and how they play themselves. And he would be worrying if at any club in the world, if that was to change. The club, the squad, the team, the fans, Talcott Park, it's a brilliant place to be here. And it would be great if someone did take over where everything was aligned, but I don't know how close anything is. And of course, Damien Duff is looking out for the best interests of Shelbourne and for himself and for his group of players here. If it was to be a case where the owner was to come in and demand that the style of football changes completely, you may as well get rid of the manager, because you're completely undermining him straight off the bat, and it isn't a good look whatsoever. And that would definitely be a huge point of contention for Shelbourne fans in this deal. Turning such a huge club into a Hull City B team is effectively what that means, and that's not a good look. We've won the League of Ireland 13 times. We're one of the biggest clubs in the country, and it would be a huge sign of disrespect to come in and just demand things like that. And it was interesting to hear Damien Duff speaking about the budget if the deal was to go through, and he was saying he wouldn't look for his budget to be quadrupled. He just look for maybe half of it even to be improved. And he thinks that his group of players at the moment is really good, really strong, and he wants to achieve impressive things with them. And he also made a comment about the kind of amount of players in this UK loan pool, which I'm not sure I'd agree with per se, but he said there's no point in having any money if you don't want to spend it on. There's not enough players to go around. If you go to the UK market, loans, that's something I wouldn't be keen on. You might have money to spend, but nowhere to spend it. And that's an interesting one, because I think we've seen countless times over the last couple of years where players have come over from the UK and done incredibly well, whether it be on a permanent move or a loan move. So I'm not necessarily sure if I agree with Damien Duff on this, but I see where he's coming from. The League of Ireland talent pool is quite small, and it is hard to kind of even still, it would still be kind of hard to compete with the Shamrock Rovers and the Derry City, who are going to, for the foreseeable, probably be able to attract top talent in the league. Of course, we've seen something very similar with Waterford, who are co-owned by the Fleetwood Town owner as well. They, of course, are in the first division of the Irish League at the moment, and which is the second tier for any kind of Hull City fans that are tuning into this video by any chance. And yeah, it's an interesting one, like, because they obviously saw their best player last season Phoenix Patterson make the move across to Fleetwood Town. But then on the flip side, they've recruited very, very well. They've brought in one of the best managers in the country, Keith Long, recently as well. Johnny Walters, an Irish legend, is the director of football there as well. So definitely some positive signs there. You can see the pros and cons of it nearly in play, the way they can attract a quality manager, the money there to spend. They brought in recruited a lot of good players, but then their best player from their team, who probably would have moved regardless, was never going to stay down in the second tier, but he did make that move to Fleetwood Town. And it would be very, very frustrating for Shelbourne fans if the best players year on year are just constantly shipped off, and trying to build a core group of players then is so difficult to be able to compete. They're bringing in all these young players and stuff. It is hard to kind of make those adjustments, especially young players coming in. They're maybe coming to learn, and they wouldn't necessarily have the same kind of appetite for the club, especially on loan deals as well. They wouldn't necessarily have the club's best interests in terms of they may be playing for themselves rather than the team and stuff. And it does make the managerial position a lot more challenging as well. So this deal is just so complex, and the pros and cons, it's just so hard to weigh up against each other. If this deal was to take place, there would have to be a lot of transparency with the Shelbourne supporters group. We'd want to know exactly what the plans are, exactly what the club's going to look like moving forward, the safety of Talca Park, which is of course a massive thing for the fans as well. We've had some good news on that front in the last week or so, but we want to have these plans set in stone. We want certain promises made. We want complete and utter transparency from Acun, Ilıcalı, and yeah, it's such a tricky one to know. But on the face of it, if he is genuine and wants to take the club forward, it does look like a good thing, but there is obviously a lot of cons and a lot of sticking points and a lot of things you would want cleared up. And yeah, you just want them to have the best interests of the club at heart, and you'd want him to move us forward. If he's going to kind of make us stale and there's no progress under him or take us backwards nearly, there's no point, there's no way we should be looking into this. There's definitely better options out there. But as we saw in the video, as I mentioned at the start, by old Grandpa Joe, he does seem to be a good guy, interacts with fans. And a big one, of course, is the financial stability that it would provide as well. But yeah, really interesting one at Shelbourne at the moment. I'd be so interested to see how the next little while plays out and if this deal does get over the line. And I'm really interested to hear your thoughts down in the comments below. Make sure to let me know what you're thinking down there. Is this a good thing for Shells? Is it not a good move? Should they look at other options for external investment? Hull City fans, if you're tuning in for the first time, can you fill us in a little bit more about the owner? Do you see yourself progressing under him? Do you think he can maybe take the Premier League one day? Does he have that ambition? It'd be really interested to hear your thoughts on the video down below. And as I said, massive shout out to old Grandpa Joe. I've mentioned it a couple of times in the video, but really good video over there. So I'll leave the link to that in the description down below. Make sure to go check it out. Make sure to drop a like on it down below, and please do subscribe. Much appreciated. We'll have a couple more videos out this week, so make sure to stay tuned, and I will catch you in a bit.